Good day, folks. It's 5th of November. Shout out the alma mater. Walking the dog in the woods. Well, road in the woods, anyways. And the dog. So, what's today's theme? Today's theme is the big picture. The Western media likes to tell you about how the Russian army can't move forward, the Russian army isn't performing, this and that and that and this. All the Russian generals are stupid and yeah, the usual silly stuff. And Ukraine is winning and won and has won and probably is taking Moscow and we just don't know it yet. That's why you need to give up heat, cold, just live in the cold, give up food, starve, so that Ukraine will prosper. No, never mind. Almost none of the money makes it to Ukraine. It all goes to the big donors, the military-industrial complex and such. But okay, all that is aside. Let's talk about the big picture. Why do you think Russia, out of the original Russian army in February 2022, out of the original Russian army, less than 15% moved into Ukraine. 15%, let that sink in. Of which about 60,000 were combat soldiers, and the rest were ash and trash support. For those of you who don't know what that means. And plus combat troops from now part of Russia, Lugansk and Donetsk. So anyways, get the picture. There's a very small percentage. No reserve call-up. And if Russia did the reserve call-up, it would be another 5 to 6 million soldiers, easily. This 1% reserve call-up was 300,000 was 1%. Reality was more than that got called up, and plus lots of volunteers. But anyways, so right now Ukraine is being bled dry. Russia actually, at this point, Russia already could have launched an offensive. 2 tank armies, as the British intel has been telling Zelensky and Zelensky, that there are tank armies and lots of equipment that's been moved into Crimea and setting north of Kharkovskaya Oblast. So why aren't they moving? Well, the main reason you're going to be told is the ground isn't frozen. And yes, that's true. The ground hasn't frozen. In fact, it's been relatively warm in the south. It's been kind of cold here, but temperatures around 2 Celsius, 5 Celsius during the day. So it all turns to mud. Of course, you can't drive tanks for a long time in the same area because they start to sink into the mud. You can't even imagine what the mud is like in Ukraine. Mud here in the rest of Russia is bad enough. Mud in the south, the west, is just, it's a whole beast all unto itself. It will swallow vehicles down to their bellies. It'll take the boots off your feet, no matter how hard you lace them. Believe me, the mud is something. But there's a bigger picture at play. If Russia had mobilized in June, May, by August, those tank armies would have been in place. They weren't created out of thin air. They were already being moved by the end of summer. They could have easily been in place by then. Moved in, if Russia moved in, not 15%, 30% of its troops. Now you got to remember, Ukraine, before the flood of Polish and Romanian soldiers in Ukrainian uniforms, before the various scum of the earth decided to all come in there and fight for the Nazis. Oh, and how they love posting how they exterminate whole villages of Russians in liberated Ukrainian areas. Yeah, those mercs from the US and UK love to do that. They go, we're going to go cleanse the village. That's how their key word is. Except those villages are behind the front line, so all their cleansing is women and children. Besides all of that, and the Ukrainians are doing it themselves. The 25th Brigade has just posted a video admitting that they were exterminating women and children. But what they were upset with was that their officers were also killing them when they were heavily wounded, rather than trying to evacuate them, finishing them off, in other words. So that upset them, so they admitted to all the atrocities they were committing. Yep, this is what America stands for these days, Nazis. Absolutely Nazis. Welcome to America. In fact, the UN had a vote, again, as Russia brings this resolution up every year, to condemn Nazism. Guess who led the coalition of the, no, we reject this? Of course, America, number one. Plus, it's Ukraine, little whore. And the rest of its whores called NATO and other allies, strumpets. let's use a more decorative word, strumpets. Still means whores. So yeah, there were the 54 countries that voted against this resolution to condemn Nazism. And America votes this way every year. Think about that, especially if you're an American. Think what your government stands for. Because it sure as hell isn't puppy dogs and cookies and American pie. It's swastikas, mass murder, extermination, and exploitation of whoever happens to be a vassal or to be a future vassal. But anyways, I digress. Long-term story. What are we looking at? Why didn't Russia move? Why didn't Russia crush this? Could have baited the Kharkov offensive earlier. But then the war would end. And what would happen if the war ended? Well, there wouldn't be an excuse for all the sanctions. Well, America will keep some sanctions, and Europe, of course, will keep some sanctions. But a lot of sanctions will go away pretty quick because Europe is desperate. And European desperation will give the face-saving excuse for the politicians to drop quite a bit of those sanctions. And then what? And then Europe is still hell-bent, along with its masters in D.C., to wipe us out, break us into little pieces, and make sure there is no Russia ever again. If you don't think the Russian people understand this, you're fooling yourself. This is what the Russian people understand. This is what the Russian government understands. In fact, one of my well-placed contacts 6 years ago told me that military assessment was there will be a war with America within 10 years. Well, we're within that 10 years. 6 years down the road, and looking like NATO and the U.S. and Russia are going to be getting it on, probably sooner than later. Especially with these advanced parties showing up from U.S. Those aren't inspectors, and a one-star doesn't lead an inspection team. Of several hundred inspectors, that's an advanced party looking for dislocation positions for future movement of NATO or coalition of the willing, as Petraeus put it, troops. Cannon fodder, plus some American backup to put some spine in the cannon fodder. So anyways, long-term picture. Western politicians, those in power, will never speak with Russia. Because to do that, no matter how much their people suffer, no matter how much their people will die, they will never do it because that means losing face. Admitting you were wrong, admitting a lot of things. And then trying to explain to people why the hell you screwed them for months on end. I mean, hell, the Germans can't even admit that anybody but Russia blew up Russia's pipelines that feed Germany. Right? So it's all secreted now. In fact, it's all now top secret government secrets who blew up that pipeline. Because when your master gives you a smack upside the head, you don't want to tell the peasants that the master is the one that's going to make sure they all die miserably cold and starving. It's just that winter hasn't really kicked into Germany yet. Berlin was in the low 20 Celsius and mid-teens right now. But it's coming. I mean, yeah, it's more delayed this year than previous, but it's still coming. And this ain't going to clear up, even if Germany survives somehow, or whatever economics survives of Germany into next spring. This ain't getting cleared up any which way, anytime soon. Germany's screwed. Deindustrialized third world nation. I mean, hell, they're running out of toilet paper. But again, they're only supposed to take baths once every 2-3 weeks now. So they can stink, and the stink of their bodies is going to cover up the stink of their shite that they can't wipe off their butts. I'd say wash it off in a bidet, but the water's too expensive. Now, so welcome to third world status, devolving into the Middle Ages. But hey, Germans keep sitting on your butts. 80% of Germans are still anti-Russian, so you're getting what you want to get. Eventually you'll realize it, but then it's already too late, so it'll eventually be even further too late. But keep going. So this is the big picture. We're using Putin's playing Western politicians against themselves and against their people. There's no excuse that they can make a deal with Russia, get their gas, get their coal, get whatever, without losing face. And those politicians will never go to lose face. So we use their weakness against them. So we track the war longer than it needs to be and make sure Europe dies. And Europe will die. Economically, it's already half dead and going. So sooner or later, first round is electing the opposition, new politicians. Those ain't going to get anything done, and they're just as much in the U.S. pocket. So after making a few noises, they'll get right back on the program, just like the Italians have done. We will not be the weak link on NATO against Russia. We will support Ukraine no matter what. Well, while your people are going bankrupt. Sure, no problem. Keep supporting Ukraine. Zelensky disease will kill you too, just like it's killed quite a few politicians. And when the people figure out that electing the opposition is just as pointless as keeping the previous people, because they're all the same, even if they have a little different letter on their lapel, then comes the bloody revolutions. Because hungry people are really pissed off people. If anybody has studied history, it's the hunger that gets the revolutions really going. People tolerate a lot. They'll tolerate slow grinding poverty as long as they can feed themselves, as long as they're not looking at the skeletal image of their kids sitting across from them, whining as they're tightening their belts, eating whatever leather they can put down their throat, because at least that's something. And yeah, grass will fill your stomach. It won't give you any nutrients, but it'll fill your stomach. Plenty of people starve with grass in their mouth and in their bellies because they're trying to do something. So anyways, I don't know how many, if the Germans still have any kind of spine left in them, or has been bred out of them, and same for most Europeans. I don't know, watching your kids starve has got to be some kind of a thing, or freeze. If that doesn't motivate the Europeans to change something, they deserve whatever fate comes rolling down their way. And it's rolling full speed, baby. So anyways, that's how we're looking at. It's a long-term game because the fight isn't with Ukraine. Ukraine is meat, brainwashed meat, and even then not totally brainwashed meat, but it's brainwashed meat that Washington's been brainwashing for quite some time, and very effectively, might I say. But that's all it is in the end. The fight isn't with Ukraine. Ukraine is the battlefield at this iteration of the big fight. The fight is with the globalists. The globalists that lead the Americans just as much as they'll lead anybody else. And any American patriot that thinks that everything's hunky-dory and the people in Washington really of either party have his best interest in mind, you're pathetically, pointlessly lost. And you deserve just as much what's coming your way as most of Europe is going to get what's coming their way. Because anybody still believes the narrative is an idiot. An idiot or is just brain dead totally. So, and the thing is, you can't wake people up. They have to wake up themselves. If they don't want to wake up, you can't wake them up. It's impossible. You can't force shock them into anything. They'll just climb deeper into their little shell and pretend world. They have to wake up all on their own. So I hope everyone wakes up. God bless.